So let's now talk about eye shape. So we've talked about visual styling in terms of space between the brows, face shape, and now we are going to look at eye shape. So eye shape is super, super important when you are looking at styling the eyes, understandably. And there are lots of eye shapes that we will start to notice when you are looking at clients which you've never thought about in the past. So what this page of the manual does, for example, is give you a breakdown of some eye shapes. I mean, these are computer generated, so they're not as good as obviously looking at a real person. But what you can do is look online, look at pictures of celebrities, look at all of the people in your house and try and work out what eye shapes they have by taking into consideration the tips that I am going to give you now. So we've got 7 eye shapes here. And what you can do is, if you've got a pen or a paper or you've printed out the manual, write down in the little lines in the middle of the manual what each eye type is. There is actually a little part later on in the manual which explains how we would style each eye shape in order of the shapes here. So you do have the answers there. So just take a quick look at number 1 and 2 for me. And just have a little think to see if there's any difference in those 2 eye shapes. Okay, so let's break these 2 down. So we're looking at the eye shapes number 1 and we're looking at number 2. So the difference is, one is an upturn, which is what we'd call in eyelash terms, and 2 is a downturn. So when we're looking at upturn and downturn, we're not looking at the inner part of the eye, we're looking at the outer part of the eye. So number 1 would be upturn. An upturn is when someone's eye sits slightly upwards. And a downturn, on the opposite, is when someone's eye sits slightly downwards. And there is a way we can work out how to do this. It's not necessarily just visual styling. Some people you'll be able to look at and you'll be able to tell straight away, but some people it might just be subtle. So what I'm going to do is just show you how we'd work it out here. So we've got a little manual here and we have got our eyes here. And what you want to do is, I'm just going to stand up here, make sure you can see that in the camera. So you would get a ruler, for example, and you could have taken a picture of your client's face on your phone. And what you want to do is put that ruler from the inner corner to the outer corner. And I mean, on Charlotte here, she's got an ever so slight upturn. So the outer, I don't know if you can see that here, the outer part of her eye sits ever so slightly higher than the inner part, which means she has an upturn. If, for example, the outer sat lower than the line, she would be considered to have a downturn eye. So hopefully that makes sense. So take a picture of your own eyes, take a picture of some people in your house, get your ruler, put it on the inside, and if the outer sits above, they've got an upturn. If it sits below, they have a downturn. So that is the difference between the eye shapes there, 1 and 2. So let's move on to 3 and 4. Now you'll see 2 differences here. Have a little think. One of them's fairly obvious. One of them is not so obvious. 3 and 4. So the obvious difference is the size of the eyes. So in 3, our eyes are fairly closed. So they're not big, bright and open. And in 4, they are open. But the difference we're actually looking for is 3 has wide set eyes and 4 has closed set eyes. So wide set means that the eyes sit further apart, and closed set means the eyes sit closer together. And the way you can work out how a client has closed set and eye set, again, so if we use this as our demonstration, let's say, as an example, I had a ruler here and we were measuring Charlotte's eyes, and her eyes here were 2 centimetres. This is 2 centimetres, and this is 2 centimetres, so it's even. If, for example, the space here was less than 2 centimetres, she is considered to have closed set eyes. If this space here between the eyes is bigger than 2 centimetres, she is said to have wide set eyes. So we would generally call this the third eye. So that's how you can tell whether a client has wide set or closed set eyes. And why this is important to know in eyelash extensions is because if a client does have wide set eyes, for example, and I think we briefly touched on this earlier, you are drawn to the outer part of their eyes. So if a client has wide set, what we want to do is start that length earlier on. So when you're looking at your client, you're drawn to this part of the face, and it gives the illusion that actually they don't have wide set eyes. And opposite, with a client with closed set eyes, because you notice this area first, we want to give them length in the outers. We want to angle out those outers to draw attention towards the outer eyes. And just going back to 1 and 2, upturn and downturn, what we can do with eyelash extensions, if a client does have an upturn, is give the illusion that they're not sat so up by using a relaxed eyelash extension at a 3 or a 9 angle. Or if they have a downturn, we want to give a bit of lift. So we're going to angle at 12 o'clock and we're going to use a stronger curl as an example. Okay, so next eye shapes. So we've got 5, 6 and 7. So 5 would be lovely open eyes. And a little tip, and you can tell if a client has open, big, large eyes, because generally you can see the white underneath the iris. So we have our pupil, which is the little black bit. We have the iris, which is the colour part of the eye. And if you can see the white underneath the iris, then generally your client has big eyes. If a client has big eyes, we want to do the opposite. So rather than open them up more, we want to elongate. So they haven't got super big eyes. And the way we would do that is by using a relaxed curl. If you use a strong curl on someone that has big eyes, you're going to open their eyes even more. 6, one point to note here actually, on page 13, and we'll go over it. It does, from page 13, it gives you these orders and explains what these eye shapes are and how to style them. However, 6 does say, which I need to change, sleepy. However, on here it is protruding, but protruding is similar to the larger eyes. You would just use a relaxed curl. 7 is your typical almond eyes. So almond eyes generally don't have an upturn, don't have a downturn, don't have a closed set, don't have a wide set, and they just have that beautiful shape. And to be honest, an almond eye shape can handle any styling. Closed eye, just because, or sleepy eyes, just because I need to actually amend that number 6. With sleepy eyes, they have eyes that are slightly more close together. So if you look at page 3, similar to that sort of closeness. If someone has closed eyes, we want to open up their eyes and we want to lift, which means, what curl are we going to use? We're going to use a stronger curl, and we're going to do a 12 o'clock in terms of direction. So just to go over those, 1, we have upturn, 2, we have downturn, 3, we have wide set, 4, we have closed set, 5, we have open, 6, we have protruding, and 7, we have almond. So what I'd like you to do now is a little exercise. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need a pen, you're going to need a bit of paper, and you are going to need a ruler and your phone, unless you have a picture of you or your mum or your sister or your boyfriend somewhere where you are. But what you're going to do is take a picture of yourself, and generally you want to take it from the back camera, not your selfie camera, because the selfie camera flips your eyes. So you want to take a straight on selfie of you looking straight into the camera. And what I would like you to do is style your own eyes. So what we are going to look at when we're styling, again, so I want you to write this down, is the space between your lashes and your brows. Do you have a big space? Do you have a small space? Because this is going to determine the length. We're going to look at your face shape. I mean, not too many people have super round or super long faces, but if you do, you're going to note that down. Then we're going to talk about your eye shape. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your ruler and you're going to look and see if you've got an upturn or a downturn. You're going to see if you have a wide set or a closed set. Do you have sleepy eyes? Do you have open eyes? So you're going to note down your eye shape. And based on the space between the brows, your face shape, and your eye shape, you can then give yourself an idea on what you would give yourself for length, i.e. big space, you're going to need more length. Long face, you're going to need 3 and 9 angle. And then eye shape. So I want you to write down space between brows, face shape, eye shape. Then we're going to write down direction, length, and curl. So we're going to style your own face to get you into practice with styling. This sort of theory is what takes you from an eyelash technician to an artist. Imagine having a client come in and they come in for a consultation and you're like, right, I'm just going to take a picture of your eyes and we're going to do a little bit of styling and, you know, I'm going to check for symmetries, I'm going to lift your eyes, I'm going to balance your face. They're going to be like, wow, I've never seen anyone do this before. You're getting a ruler out and you're talking to them about having ever so slight upturn, which is actually beautiful, but we can just create a little bit more balance. No one does this. In this industry, you need to stand out. And it's really difficult to stand out. So if you can add styling to your consultation process, you are going to stand out. And what I would do, again, is practice on anyone and everyone. You can send me photos, send me a picture of a before and an after you've done a bit of styling, and ask me questions. Is this right? Am I doing this right? But this can really change your eyelash life. So we have gone over spaces between the brow, face shape, and eye shape. And I will be back with the next element of styling in 2 seconds.